Search for answers in the Powell family tragedy and Susan's 2009 disappearance brought investigators to a landfill. Detectives are combing the facility not far from the home where Josh Powell and his children died in a house fire. Investigators believe Powell traveled from his house to the landfill the day before he killed his children.
Well, between the Powell children murders and the Ader family case, these crimes have rattled many people, and we've been hearing from viewers about this. Tough crimes to process and explain to your children. Joining us tonight, clinical psychologist Dr. Paul Domitor. And first of all, how do people process such tragic news like this, from the detectives on the scene to the reporters covering it to even the viewers listening?
Well, it's very horrifying when this happens, and it really shocks all of us. I think those people that work professionally with tragedy are, to some extent, less reactive emotionally. I think for the rest of us, we try to make sense out of how could this possibly have happened, and what can we do to participate in preventing it in the future.
Sure. What do you tell a child? Because the children in these cases had classmates and very good friends. What do parents say to their children in trying to explain what's happened?
It's my feeling that we ought not to be talking to kids about this unless they ask us about it. So one of our jobs as parents is to protect our children's innocence.
Right.
And in that regard, if a child wants to know, I heard about this, or this was my classmate, mom or dad, or what happened, why did this happen, can it happen to me?
Right.
Then I think it's very important that we speak to them about the fact that there are bad people in the world. They do very bad things, and we will do everything we can to protect you. You can count on us to be there for you. It's unlikely something like this would happen to you, and to try and reassure the child, but to explain to them without necessarily going into great detail that there are some bad things that happen in our world.
Sure.
And in that regard, to begin to orient them to that topic.
And what about the mental health aspects of cases like this, especially in Dustin Gilman's case? His father on TV saying, we tried to get all the help we could for him, even made him a ward of the state so the state could take over.
Yeah, it's very difficult in the sense that you see a pattern with such individuals of aggressive acting out as very young children. And many of these kids will convert into antisocial personality disorders, and these are people that violate the standards of society over and over again. Many of them become violent. There's some question about whether some of these offenders that act out in a very severe manner, as happened in this case, may have a problem with their hard wiring and their genetics.
Sure.
In the sense that they can't really empathize with other people as fellow human beings. Rather, they see them as objects to gratify their own needs or their own impulses. So somehow we have to understand what causes this, and when we identify kids that are really at risk, we've got to go all out to save them, because and I'm sure the family did the best that they could, but we just don't have enough programs in our state, in our country, to really address rehabbing these kids if we possibly can. To me, it's a matter of residential care for an extended period of time to try to turn them around. Otherwise, we all suffer, and certainly terrible tragedy in this case.
And it always seems that mental health services are the first things cut when there are economic tough times, when a city or a county, that's the first thing they cut.
Exactly, and yet we're sitting here talking about trauma to the community and all the viewers that you've been hearing from about what do I do with this, how do I handle this, and the death of beautiful young children. You know, these are things we need to rise to the occasion, and we need to make services available. And then if we are unable to rehabilitate some kids, we really need to protect society from those individuals, because again, they often will develop into antisocial personality disorders, sometimes very, very violent individuals. So there are a lot of dilemmas here, not the least of which is funding and making services available.
And just being aware of those red flags, as you've said.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily normal behavior for your kid to be real aggressive toward teachers and so forth at 9 and 10 years old. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Very young indeed. Well, Dr. Paul Domitor, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
All right, Mike.
All right.